Main screen turn on. Listen to me rant, watch me play a game, or preferably try to do both at the same time. This is Discourse Display. In the first edition of this format, I want to discuss some of my thoughts on Smaforge, with the handheld version being released in about 3 weeks over here. I'm playing Kirby Air Ride because its city trial mode is conceptually similar to the Smash Run that Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS will have in it. As a disclaimer, I saw the leaks before the game was released and read some info about certain aspects on the Smash Wiki, but haven't really watched much gameplay footage yet. So first of all, what I think most of us will find the most important thing, the roster. This one has some characters that I'm super excited about, but also some choices that I feel could have been better. The first thing that comes to my attention is that Zelda and Sheik and Power Suit and Zero Suit Samus are separate characters now instead of transformations, which I think is actually a great loss of what made them special to begin with. On the same record, Pokemon Trainer is also taken out, and Charizard is playable as his own character now, instead of being teamed up with Squirtle and Ivysaur like in Brawl. Seeing as how this gives him an additional slot for a special move, as Pokemon Change is no longer needed, he gains the move Flare Blitz. But more importantly, his final smash also changes into him attaining his Mega Charizard X form. I'm calling it now. The Wii U version of this game will have the Y form in this slot. I'll be the first to admit that Pokemon Trainer felt at least a little out of place amongst trainerless Pikachu and Jigglypuff. But Charizard in his own doesn't really make much sense either. He is just not relevant enough to what's going on in Pokemon right now. And if my predictions are correct of him getting his other Mega Evolution as a final smash in Wii U, then they should have just brought back Mewtwo, who could have done the same thing. Sticking to the Pokemon on the roster, Lucario is still in for whatever reason. His inclusion in Brawl was logical, seeing as the 4th generation was the last one released in that time period, and Lucario made sense as the representative of Diamond and Pearl due to the hype around him as the main character of the 8th film of the franchise, and being mentioned in the first Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, all before the main RPGs were released. But now we're 8 years and 2 generations further, and he really didn't have to be included if Mewtwo isn't brought back either. And I actually often play this Lucario in Brawl, whereas I dislike Mewtwo in the core game, so I'm not saying this out of a dislike or favoritism for one or the other. In this regard, newcomer Greninja doesn't really deserve to be in this game either. I get that the newest generation deserves a representative, but this starter doesn't really merit the honor any more than the other two. Or any of the new Pokemon for that matter, in my opinion. It's also the odd one out in that it doesn't have a Mega Evolution as its final smash. I suppose Greninja does make a splash, and that it doesn't do anything for me. Speaking of newcomers, we have the original Mega Man in the game, which is pretty sweet. I've always seen this guy as a semi-Nintendo character, seeing as how the first games were all released on Nintendo consoles. His final smash is also really awesome. Pac-Man is added, which I doubt comes as a surprise to anyone who knew that Namco was working on this game. I don't really have any feelings about his inclusion, to be honest. I don't have much experience with the character outside of the arcade game and the Championship Edition. It's better than what they did in Street Fighter X Tekken though. Speaking of which, bad box art Mega Man needs to be in this game too. Please just make it happen as a palette swap. And on the front of third-party characters, Sonic is still in, but Snake is out. Didn't really play as him much, and he felt more out of place than any other character on the roster, but it's always a shame when someone gets cut, and his codex calls were fun at the very least. Plus, I have great memories of his reveal in the 2006 Brawl trailer. I am pretty upset over the Ice Climbers not making it into this game though. They were amongst my favorites to play as in the previous two games. Wolf and Lucas also don't make a return, which isn't as bad since they were pretty much glorified clones of Fox and Nash respectively, though Wolf was one of my main picks in Brawl as well. However, I don't get why Dr. Mario is put back in after his absence in the previous installment. He was one of my mains in Melee, and I was disappointed he didn't make it to the sequel, but what's so relevant about him now to bring him back? Newcomer Lucina is apparently as much a clone of Marth as the Doc is of Mario, so why not have Roy instead of her then? Fire Emblem Awakening already has its rep in Robin anyway. As a side note, I haven't actually played the game, so I don't really know anything about Robin to have any feelings towards the character, but at least the gameplay mechanics seem interesting there, from what I could tell from the trailer. But what I think is even worse is that a new clone character was added in Dark Pit. I suppose adding Palutena was nice, since I feel that every series deserves at least 2 representatives. But I haven't actually played any of the Kid Icarus games, so I don't know what to think about her, but Dark Pit seems like a character who should have been an assist trophy at best. I honestly would have rather seen Pichu make a comeback. And speaking of clones, you'd think the Zelda series is big enough for Ganondorf to have his own moveset by now. Or really, to begin with. Okay, a little less negativity for a moment. Little Mac is in, whom I've wanted since Melee, and it seems like he'll play just like I imagined he would have to back then. The Wii Fit trainer was a surprise. I didn't really know what to make of it at first, but I actually think her inclusion is pretty awesome as well, and she'll be the second of the new characters I try out, following Little Mac. The Mii fighters were to be expected, but quickly glancing over some of the info now, it seems like you won't be able to use your own Mii, which really would be the only redeeming factor for these characters, so here's hoping that this will actually be possible. Rosalina seems like she could be fun to play as. I love the Mario Galaxy games, but I'm not too fond of how she's shoehorned into every spin-off now. Bowser Jr. wasn't really on my wanted list at all, as I've disliked him from Sunshine and onwards, but having a Koopa Clown car is pretty awesome. And having the other Koopa Kids as alternate palettes is amazing fan service. I haven't really looked into his gameplay though, so I can't comment on that, but I feel that together with Rosalina and the other 7 Mario characters, and I am including Mario in that count, there are too many reps for the series. I'd much rather have seen another Donkey Kong character, for example. I can't really get over Shulk's name. Not having played the game he originates from, Xenoblade Chronicles, the only thing I really thought when I saw the reveal trailer was another sword user. I think he'll be a pretty technical character to play though, with all his different stances. Villager is also a character I don't really care about. I've played some of the GameCube Animal Crossing, but didn't really get into it and haven't bothered with the other ones in the series. But Animal Crossing is a big series for Nintendo, so I get why he is included. It's a character I have to play as before passing my final verdict. And then lastly, the Duck Hunt characters. My first thought when I heard about this was excitement for such a classic character to make it into this game. Then about a second later, disappointment struck me as I realized they would have been better as an assist trophy, and it stole development time for other, potentially better characters. I haven't really seen any footage of them as of yet, so perhaps my stance on this will change, but I would have much rather have had the Ice Climbers back. I haven't really looked into the stages, that being something I'd rather discover while playing the game, but I do think it was a good idea to give every stage a final destination form. I'm not into competitive play myself, but for those who are, and for those who like watching it, having different backgrounds will give it a bit of more variation. For that matter, splitting the online game into two different types for casual and competitive players was also a smart move. I have seen a video by Maximilian Dude that the connection could use some work, and it isn't really as good as it should be for a AAA game. But then again, after Brawl, I think that was to be expected as well. What I'm more disappointed about though is that the 3DS version will only have 2 tracks per stage. The music themes and remixes is one of my favorite things in the series, and really cranks up the nostalgia mood meter to 11. Which brings me to my next point. 2 different versions of what is essentially the same game. If they were released at the same time, I most likely would not have bought the 3DS version. But as it is, I won't be able to help myself from owning them both, since I need my fix along with the rest of the world. So that is some brilliant marketing from Nintendo there. But what I'm most interested in about myself is the single player. Though Classic and All-Star modes make their return, I'm really hoping for a third mode in the Wii U version as well. Melee's Adventure mode was a lot of fun, and even though it did have its flaws, the Subspace Emissary had its moments as well. Only having the first two will probably cut my playtime in these games by a pretty big margin, especially since Smash Run is apparently multiplayer only, and as stated before, connections aren't always as great as they should be. Then, to top it all off, the Amiibos. Yeah. The first Skylander set was a brilliant selling strategy, but it really wore itself out with its several sequels, even before Disney Infinity was announced. And I don't think this will really do much better. Still, I didn't get into the other two-mentioned series, so I'll probably buy at least a few of these to see how it works. I'm kind of interested in seeing the whole leveling them up and giving them movesets and whatnot, which has been announced so far. But I'm not too positive about it as of yet. So those are some of my initial thoughts on what is happening in this game before having actually played it. Though I might have seemed a bit negative, I am looking forward to this game and I will probably buy the 3DS version on the release date. I know that the previous 3 games were a lot of fun, regardless of the multiplayer not being great. I just think that if there isn't too much to do in single player and not really any couch co-op as you would have in the console versions, I won't have as much playtime into the 3DS version. But hopefully the Wii U version will fix that. The chances are high that I'll write about my experiences with the game on my social media sites, which you could find in the description below, if you're interested in that. At any rate, thanks for listening and watching, and perhaps I'll see you on the next video.